Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and welcome back to my channel Stubbornly Bookish. Today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review for The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Now The Fifth Season is quite a popular, well-reviewed book, not only in the booktube community but just the general adult SFF community. It's won awards and I have been looking forward to reading this one for a long time. And I will say, it did not disappoint me. The fifth season is essentially about a world in which it routinely experiences like natural disasters. The people are constantly in a state of preparedness for when the world is going to go south. And at the beginning of our novel, the fifth season, the biggest one, the one to end all worlds, has just occurred. So now basically everyone is just trying to survive as long as they can, and one of our main characters at the start of the book, at the start of the disaster, has just discovered her son murdered and knows that it was done by her husband. So the first thing about this book, like right off the bat, is the world. Normally with fantasy you expect kind of like medieval type lore with kings and queens and the ruling class, all that stuff. This one totally does something different with it. There's a race of magic users that essentially help save the world and stop as many disasters as they can, but they're hated and found to be disgusting by the regular people. And there is somewhat of a ruling class, but basically the people who control this world are this elite society who controls the magic users. It's incredibly complex and different and so very unique, and that alone, I think, is a selling point for this book. I will say, in terms of the world building, it throws you right in there, and for about 150 to 200 pages, I was a little confused because everything is so different. N.K. Jemisin has to start from scratch and tell you how everything works. I will say that her choice to include 3 different perspectives over 3 different timelines was incredibly smart because it really gives you a well-rounded view of how the world works. I thought it was incredibly fascinating how she had a different sort of ruling class and how it's very much, the world is run by this corrupt secret society that you really don't know that much of, and I'm very excited to see and discover more about this society in the later books. I also love the influence of science in this one. I feel like when it comes to SFF, it's science fiction or fantasy, but this one most definitely blurs the lines, or at least is a fantasy story, but heavily talks about its science in its own world. And the world I could talk about for forever because I just thought it was so genius, unique, and great. I loved her world and world building. The fifth season is an Own Voices work in terms of N.K. Jemisin being a woman of color. Basically, this entire cast are POC. She also featured a trans side character, and there was a poly relationship in here, which I've never read before, and oh my god, they're like my new favorite couple OTP. I loved reading from them. With all of the characters, each one of them had really unique and different side characters that they could play off of, and I found, like, I just loved all the characters and how they each brought different perspectives. There was most definitely great dynamics between all of them. In terms of the character, I enjoyed all 3 different perspectives pretty equally. She was really good at breaking off the perspective at a point where it would make me want to continue reading on so I could get back to that perspective. And it wasn't cliffhangery all the time, which I think can get annoying, but she definitely toes the line and uses that a couple of times to keep you invested and engaged in reading. Discovering that positive reviews are very hard because basically you're just saying that you loved every single aspect of this novel, and it's just, I'm trying. I don't typically do glowing reviews. Something I thought that was unique and again different for a high fantasy was that it wasn't crazy action-packed. It's not really a book focusing on the disaster that is occurring, but really what's happening to these few characters and how they're trying to survive and do the best they can. It's very much a character-driven book. The disaster, which is looming and pressing, isn't really a part of the point of the story. I will say that this is very much a foundational book. She had a lot of work to do, and I know some people didn't love it as much because of that. However, I was okay with the amount of setup it took. I love the characters, I love this world, and so I was okay and willing to wait a little bit. In terms of the writing style, there's one key difference or thing that she changes, and one of our perspectives is actually told in second person, which I will admit was incredibly difficult for me to first read because I don't think I've ever read a book told in second person before. I don't think I could have done a full novel of it being told you, but the one perspective, the one woman she chose to tell the you from, I thought was really smart. And I'm trying so hard not to spoil anything. I thought it was smart, good, and a different, and again, unique narrative choice. I really like how she explored themes of both bigotry and prejudice in her fantasy book. It's a different setting, but it's most definitely a real world topic. And I just thought what she brought to the table was incredibly interesting and well thought and put out. And could you tell that I love this book yet? That is basically it for my review. I will say this is not a book that you should read sporadically. You really need to dedicate yourself to this one. It's incredibly complex, but if you dedicate the time, I think it's well worth it. Frankly, this book has expanded what I thought my favorite genre could be, and for that alone, I think it deserves all the praise that it gets and more. Her unique world and the characters really sold this one for me. 5-star read. It's my favorite book I've read so far this year. I'd like to know if you've read the 5th season and what you thought about it. Please, I would love to discuss this one in the comments down below. That's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!